Hi guys! Today we're looking at using milk again to fix charcoal and other fun items. So if you haven't seen my first video, it will be linked at the end, either above or at the end. You couldn't quite see on my fingers if the milk had fixed the charcoal last time. So instead of my finger, I'm going to use a tissue. So I have bits of card, it's watercolour paper basically, but it's offcuts that I've just cut and saved. And over here is some full fat cow's milk, just very little. So you can see in this kind of small glass that there's hardly any in there, and I haven't added any water to it yet. Okay, so let us make some marks with this charcoal. Just regular scratchy. And we will rub it in to the paper. It's got lots of bits there, and then we'll go back over it. So basically my fingers are really dirty, but this is a clean tissue. And I will just prove that it will stain the tissue. Not got enough on there at the minute, so hold on. I've scrubbed the charcoal all over to get the lot in, and we'll put this now. And you can see that that is picked up onto the tissue. But if we now put our brush into the milk, give it a swirl, and put it directly back onto here, just dab all over. And again, go back to the milk, back onto here. And we're just leaving that to dry. Put that back in. And you'll see, possibly, after this first layer, it might be fixed. But I have put a lot of charcoal on. Okay, now we're going to use a Prismacolor dark umber. We're going to scribble it all over here while the charcoal one dries. I then have rubbed the tissue over it, and you can see that there is slight staining on the edge of the tissue. Now we're going to put milk on it. Remember, this is undiluted, so it will leave a shine. But if you want it matte, just add a little water. And we will leave that to dry. So now we're going to try a crayon rock. And if you don't know what those are, search on my channel and you will see a video all about these cute little things. So now we're going to scribble again. And this has been rubbed over the crayon rock, and it leaves a mark, all before we put it covered in milk. So let's get our brush full of milk and go all over it. Just dabbing. Don't particularly want to disturb any of the pigment. And I don't do a spray bottle, so we just dab. And then we will leave it to dry. Okay, so while that's drying, I have now scribbled the 3 supplies again, and I've added a little water to the milk, not much, and we're now going to use that to see the effect. And then we're going to let that dry. Now the edges are still wet, but the middle part is dry, so let's do a test. So I don't know if you can see on camera. I'll try to get in as close as I can. Though the edges are still wet, you can see a slight sheen when I move the paper back and forth. That's because it is gloss fixative this way with the milk. Over here it's completely dry. So I'm going to get a new clean tissue to show you if we're going to get any residue or not. So I'm just going to very lightly over the middle rub. And there's no mark. Can you see? And that's with the crayon rocks. And that's quite a soft kind of wax. Now let's just test. The edges are a bit wet here. This is the Prismacolor. And again, it feels slippy in the middle, like smooth. And we've got no mark here. Nothing. I'm not digging in, but I am using even pressure. If I had done the same pressure without the milk, we would have had residue, like you saw before. So again, here is the charcoal. It also might depend on the paper you use. Gosh, nothing. I was expecting on this paper and how thick I put it on that we were going to get residue. But no, there's no residue, and this was the charcoal. So even before it's completely dry around the edges, the milk has set it. Now, the other one drying on the radiator at the moment is the watered down milk. And I would say I put no more than 5 mils of water into this 15 milligram of milk. It's roughly 15 milligrams. So it's not something you need to really measure and weigh. It's just about estimating. You know, it depends on the projects that you're doing. So this is still wet around here. I did all 3. So I was just going to mop up the edges, possibly. I don't think I need to. Okay, so let's see if the middles are dry. They are roughly dry. So let's have a quick test. No residue. Even with slightly watered down milk. It just means if you water it down, you shouldn't get, I don't know if you can see here, with the gloss effect, you can actually see around the edges is shiny. So you can see that you've used a fixative. But with this, remember it will be all over your work. So obviously around the edges you can see, but it isn't going to be as shiny, and I didn't really put that much water in. But you don't want to put too much water in, otherwise the casein that's in the milk will be too diluted. So we're just going to leave that there, and we'll move on to the middle one, which is the Prismacolor pencil. Oh, hang on. I did the wrong one. We go over here. Might not have put enough. Now, we are getting a little bit of residue on that. On the Prismacolor, I wasn't sure. You can see here, if I zoom in, there is a bit of brown. Now, it could be I didn't cover the whole area. And also I could have rushed it with drying. Let's have a look. No, it is dry and it is a bit glossy. So it could be we just need to do another layer on that. As I say, not watering the milk down works better, I find. But I know some people don't like gloss. And of course that didn't work for crayon rocks. So what we have to do is do a second layer, that's all, of our watered down milk. And then we leave that to dry. So as I say, it's a process and you do have to be patient. But at the end, you have a non-toxic, safe fixative. You just make sure that the milk has gotten into every little bit. Because it could be that I missed some the first time round. But with the charcoal, the first layer covered it. It's totally fine. So we'll put that back on the radiator to dry. And it's now dry. So let's rub this clean tissue over the second layer and see what happens. So this is the Prismacolor pencil in the middle. See? There is absolutely no staining. Totally clean. So it just needed two. This one only had one layer and there is no staining. And let's do this last one, the charcoal. Completely clean. So you might need up to 5-8 layers. We only did 2 on watercolor 300 GSM paper. So I hope, guys, that this is helping you to see that just regular milk is actually an artist's best friend. And I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!